I think a good place to start might be this. The last time you and I spoke was right before the legislative session really got underway. We were in the first week or two of the session when we chatted last. Now the session is in the rearview mirror, it's finished. When you look back on all that happened under the Gold Dome this year, are you satisfied? Are you happy? Do you feel like your priorities got done?
Our biggest priority was actually license reform, and House Bill 579 was passed into law, and the governor should be signing it in the next couple of weeks. We think he was receptive to signing it, and so we'll wait and see. That's his final decision, but it really allows license reform to really streamline what we do. We first of all can administratively issue licenses if people have met all the qualification and the board hasn't met for a while, so we can just do that to expedite issuing a license. And then also, lo and behold, the governor puts all these people on the licensing boards, but there is no way that anyone would ever remove them if they laid down on the job and just weren't doing the job that they were really tasked to do. So now the governor has that authority that he could actually remove them. We think that's really good so that we can make sure that the boards are responsive to the voters and the license holders of Georgia.
To a voter who might hear that and think, boy, that sounds like a lot of inner workings and inside baseball and technical language, the practical impact to a Georgia voter of this new legislation, in your view, is what?
Well, we have over 1 million people that hold a professional license, from electricians, plumbers, engineers, nurses, 140 different licenses, 40 different boards. And so it's really important that we can streamline and reduce barriers for job creation, and also reduce barriers so you're not held up waiting to get that license so you can start practicing your profession, earning money for yourself and for your family.
It makes things easier.
Makes things easier. It's really making sure that Georgia's the best place to raise your family.
Let's talk about another thing that you know all about. That's elections. That is about the new state of Georgia. We're talking on Tuesday. There's an active election underway right now in Cobb County for a couple commission seats. It feels increasingly like it is always campaign season in Georgia. I see you smiling, kind of nodding your head there. Do you agree?
It always has been. But it's not until you're in this space or you're in the news media that you'd realize that, hey, we have elections that are going 365 days a year. Not quite, but just as soon as you finish a big cycle, then it rolls around to other, special elections, things like that. And so you have special elections, and then we have a PSC commission, and then we'll have the municipals this year. And this is a quote, an off year. And then next year we'll roll into the gubernatorial cycle, and there'll be a US Senate seat that'll be on that ballot also. So that'll be a big year for Georgia, and we'll have 4 million plus voters that'll be voting next year, and then we'll roll 2 years later into another presidential cycle. So it's kind of just continues on.
One of the things we've heard from a lot of people in the sort of political space, political scientists, political consultants, and candidates, is that the cycles seem to be moving earlier and earlier and earlier in the calendar too. You see this flurry of people announcing their candidacies now, and even back, one prominent candidate before 2024 was over announcing his candidacy for a 2026 race. Does it feel like things are happening earlier and earlier now?
Well, in many cases it is. I guess some people want to get out early. I don't know if it's desperation on their part, what's going on, but all I know is that we'll be fully prepared. In fact, we're here, in Paulding County today this is a statewide conference that our office is holding. We have over 300 election directors and election workers that are here from all over the states. Pierce County is here, Decatur County is here, so we've really reached all the corners of the state. All 159 counties are here today with representatives working on training for the next election cycle.
I want to talk about that training and the election cycles and kind of the brass tacks of it in a moment, but I do want to ask you a question that we get asked sometimes as well, just from a human perspective. When you talk about always being in election mode, always feeling like campaign mode is on in Georgia, is that healthy for voters? Is that healthy for people to be in that space all the time?
Well, I think a lot of times voters really start paying attention as it gets closer to the election cycle. The candidates may be doing what they're doing, but on the back, side of the equation, our election directors, this is a 365-day, this is a 52-week project for them, and so they're always motivated to learn more and be prepared better for the next election cycle. It just kind of reminds me of the Luke Combs song, Doing This, because if they weren't doing this, they'd still be doing this, because they just love what they do. What they're really all about is making sure we have fair, honest, accurate elections. And we really have just added on that top of that fast elections, getting those quick results. And there's just like really trying to deliver value for the voters, keep those lines short, get those results up there quick.
There's a Secretary of State in every state in the United States. I think it would be hard to find many others who share your role across the country, who have been more in the national spotlight and more in a central position in a series of high-stakes elections than yourself. You are the state's election leader. You have overseen the state's election process in the 2020 presidential election, the 2022 midterms, and the 2024 presidential election. Those were high-stakes, high-intensity races. When you look back on all that transpired over those years, do you have any regrets about how any of it played out?
No, our office is battle tested. Our job is to make sure we deliver free, fair, and fast elections. We've been recognized by the Heritage Foundation, either one or two, for the last several years that they've looked at election integrity. Now that's on my side of the aisle, but we still think that's a great thing. And then someone said that Georgia and Florida run the best election in the entire country on election night. Now I didn't see that segment because I was busy election night in 2024. But we get high marks. National Bipartisan Policy Center recognized us #1, tied with Colorado for election integrity. But see, we're always at the top of the list, no matter who you're going to say who's #1, who's #2. Is it Tennessee? Is it Florida? Or is it Colorado? But Georgia's always in the mix. So we're kind of like the UGA of football. Well, we're the UGA of elections. We're just running a great system here. The state of Georgia does a great job. And it really gets so much because of my team that we have developed and really built this team out. We have great leadership here, but also the leadership of the 159 counties. They actually do the hard work, and that all gets back to training. And then that's why they're meeting here for 3 days, getting prepared for next year's cycle.
I know there are going to be people who hear your answer there and they agree. I know, and you know, that there are also folks in Georgia and around the country who might disagree with that. I want to ask you this. There has been an evolution of modern political parties in recent years. The Democratic Party, of course, also the Republican Party. There has been tension between you and President Donald Trump at times, particularly in the wake of the 2020 presidential election. But you also recently, just last week, praised his handling of the southern border. In 2021, Georgia Republicans censured you. In 2022, you won re-election handily here. Where do you see your role in the modern Republican Party?
I'm a true conservative, and I think that's really where I always will be, because I believe that the border should be secure, and I think all that illegal immigration that Biden allowed that went on, 3.5 million people a year, it was ridiculous. We didn't have to change any laws. All you had to do was enforce the laws we had, and we shut it down. And so I give high marks for the president for doing that. And I also believe strongly that only American citizens should be voting in our elections. And Georgia is Real ID compliant. I've done 2 citizenship audits to make sure only American citizens are voting in our elections. Some states are not Real ID compliant. And so some of the folks in these other states won't even be able to get on an airplane after May 7th because they don't have a Real ID. Not a problem in Georgia. We've been partnering with the Department of Driver Services, and that's how we make sure that only American citizens are on the voter list. I think that's really important. Everything we've done, over 94% of all Georgians right now believe that they can trust the election results. That's over 95% of all Republicans and almost 90% of all Democrats. That's strong bipartisan support. Whoever gets 95% approval on anything, and we've gotten it with our election process, and trust is the gold standard. And that's what we deliver to voters every day. We work hard every day to deliver trust, systems that you can trust that will give you the right results. You may not like the results, but you can trust the results.
And that data, you're basing it off of a UGA poll that came out shortly after
That's
the
not
election,
Brad's
right?
poll, that's the UGA. So that, I think, is a bipartisan poll. They're just calling voters and asking, what did you think about the election of 2024? High marks, highest in the country.
You said with intensity there, you described yourself as a true conservative.
Absolutely, I've been since day one. I think I came out of my mom's, belly, as a conservative, and my sister, used to always poke fun at me. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool conservative. Always have been, always will, because I think that free market capitalism is the opportunity that we all have, the opportunity to become more of whatever we want to become. America is just the best country that's ever been, came out of the minds of man, our founders, and we're dedicated to liberty and the free enterprise system. So you can be everything you want to be, whatever field that is. And mine happen to be engineering, construction, manufacturing. Yours is what you do here. But if I wasn't doing this, I'd still be doing this.
You talk about being a true conservative, but I know that there are activists inside the Republican Party and elsewhere in the state who have attacked you at times, saying that you're a rhino, a Republican in name only. When you hear that criticism, how does that hit you?
It's silly, because we got sued by Stacey Abrams and all her folks on that side of the aisle over 10 lawsuits after the 2018 elections, and we met her and beat her in a court of law. She never conceded, and then afterwards she had additional issues that she said about the Election Integrity Act of 2021. She said there was going to be voter suppression, and what the Election Integrity Act did, it made sure that we could hold counties accountable. Also, we could have photo ID for all forms of voting, and by having photo ID for absentee voting, we elevated trust in the process. We're the first state to have that, and I'm proud of that.
You recently sent an open letter to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, criticizing the department's handling of Afghan refugees, particularly Christian Afghan refugees in the country. What made you want to send that letter?
I don't believe I was criticizing when I said, can we have a 90-day pause? First of all, you have to understand these Afghan Christians, they stood alongside our US military after 9/11. So bin Laden and all his folks, they went ahead and we had the World Trade Center bombing and the destruction of the World Trade Center. Then we go ahead and we have our Marines over there, and we had to look for some local friendlies. They came alongside of it at great risk to their life. Then all of a sudden, with Biden's embarrassing withdrawal of US armed forces, then all of a sudden these people had to flee out of Afghanistan. So first of all, they came alongside of our military. If we don't stand with people that came alongside of us, local friendlies, what happens if we ever have an engagement some other country down the road? Who's going to come alongside us then? So think about that. Number two, these are Christians in the Taliban state. They're not friendly to Christians. And I think we need to really lean into, is this the right place is there someplace else, if we're not going to leave them, let them to stay here in America? Would Canada take them? Australia, New Zealand, some other country that would be amenable to that? So let's have a 90-day pause to take a look at it. Yes, I'm a Christian, and I believe that we need to make sure that we protect people of faith. In fact, America was founded so much on religious freedom. Many of us came here for that, very issue that we had. Some came for economic freedom, some came for religious freedom. Either way, we're talking about freedom, and that's what America should stand for.
Has Secretary Noem responded to your letter?
I think she's pretty busy. She's making sure she's secure the border and a lot of other things. But I wrote my letter just as a letter of concern, and just asked that they would gently consider doing a 90-day pause.
But just so I'm understanding correctly, so far no response.
Not yet, but I sent her another one about the SAVE database, which was really so we could verify citizenship, how to expedite that, because the Biden administration threw up all sorts of barriers for us and made it very difficult. It took us almost 1 year to do our first citizenship audit, just because of all the hassles and roadblocks, and we didn't ask the questions in the right way. We figured that out. The second one we did in half that time. But we gave her a roadmap on how we can really expedite that for not just Georgia, but for every state, because we think every state should audit its voter rolls to make sure only American citizens are on the voter list.
Let's talk about the future here. There is a big election year coming up in 2026. There is a Senate position up for grabs. Senator John Ossoff, a Democrat, is going to be up for re-election. And the governor's mansion here in Georgia is open. When you look ahead to those races, what kind of candidate from your party do you hope emerges?
A true conservative.
What does that look like?
I think you're looking at him.
You're running?
Could be. I'm looking at all my options, and we're talking to our team, and so we'll let you know, in a few months.
The last time I asked you this question, you were not nearly as declarative as you just were. It sounds to me like you're about to announce either a Senate run or a gubernatorial run.
Well, I didn't say I was, you're putting a timeline on it. I didn't say I was really on that timeline. I'm on my own timeline. I think right now, we're still working with the counties, getting ready for some elections we have this year, and we want to make sure that's all in good order before we do anything.
I don't want to put you on my timeline, as you're on your own timeline, as you said. What does your timeline look like?
We'll let you know when we're at that point. Thank you.
What will be the deciding factor for you?
I care about America and I care about Georgia. When we moved here from Virginia back in 1982, I was working for a company, bought a business, it was a daycare center, and then I went out and I started my own construction business. Georgia's been really good to me. And somewhere along the line, I got into public service. And also I realized, just like we're fighting in DC, a lot of things in America weren't working for hardworking Georgians, middle-class folks. And I love delivering service and value for hardworking taxpayers every day. And so that really will be my focus. How can we deliver value for the voters of Georgia? You look at our elections office. North Carolina has 72 people in their office. We have 30. Yet we're ranked number 1. North Carolina isn't. So when you look at this value that we're delivering, that's what I believe government should deliver to hardworking Georgians that are paying taxes every day, every week. And so I believe in public service. I want to show that we can actually provide good service. And so that's what I would be focused on. How do we make things better in Georgia for hardworking folks that want to get ahead?
Can you say specifically whether you're looking more closely at a Senate run or a gubernatorial run?
Not today.
Let me ask you this question, because you just staked out what a lot of candidates who have declared have essentially said would be their kind of sort of campaign sketch. You said your focus would be, in a lot of ways, on practical issues, almost kitchen table issues and efficiency issues. You described your performance and the Secretary of State's office's performance under your leadership, compared it to North Carolina. To get to a general election, you first have to get through a primary. And in primaries, sometimes culture issues, culture war issues, as they're sometimes described, take center stage, and those efficiency issues, the kitchen table issues, fall to the back of the conversation. Do you think you could make it through a Republican primary?
I did in 2022. No runoff, and someone was endorsed by someone else, and they said I didn't have a chance, and I won without a runoff. And then in the fall, I won with the largest winning percentage in the entire state of Georgia. But I noticed that Governor Kemp did a little bit better in some areas, and that keeps me humble, and I just know there's more work to be done. But I had a great message, and I'll continue to do that. I think people are looking for someone that's honest, has integrity, that'll stand in the gap and make a decision when they have to. They're also looking for someone that's actually done something, accomplished something. They weren't relying on what their family had done, and they haven't been a lifelong bureaucrat. They've actually built a company. They understand how hard it is. They understand how hard it takes to build a team of people. And that's what I've done in the Secretary of State's office. I built a great team. And that's why we're recognized #1 for election integrity in the entire country.
Do you get tired of people within your own party doubting you?
No, because it is what it is. My job is just to go out and be Brad and be the best Brad I can be and do the best job I can to deliver value for the taxpayers of Georgia.
Mr. Secretary, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.